Alright. Well, that... my tracking is horrendously off. Woohoo! There we go. What in the world are you guys up to? I literally went away. There was nothing in the chat. I come back, and there's everything in the chat. Golly. What in the world are you guys up to? Boom, 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 ba-da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Alright. Well, I guess we're just gonna get started. I have a lot to go through. I have... Sorry for trying to have a discussion in your chat. Oh. I have 100 slides to get through. What in the world, guys? Oh my goodness. Anyway, technically, what the frick? There we go. It does not bring progress. Let's not get into that stuff. Golly. I forget that's the thing. Boop, 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 boop. At what cost? Oh my gosh. Do I have to put, like... Are we guys ready? Because I can start. If you guys are ready. Alright. So it's Hollow Knight time. This is gonna be something. So, from the FNAF one, I have learned that I need to do a couple of things. So, how about I do this? I'll go right here. Make it easy for everyone's viewing pleasure. We have important terms that I have to put into place. Cause golly gee, this place has some terms that are gonna come up. So you have essence. It is the remnants of wishes and dreams, which is the... It's like the bluish kind of stuff. It could take multiple forms and... Excuse me. It's the living, breathing thing. It's like... life juice, I guess, is the best way to describe it. There's like multiple colors and forms of it. So there's like, we've seen yellow, green, blue. Oh, the temporary health? No, I think that's the life... Yeah, that's the lifeblood. Which is further down. So some examples are like the whispering roots, which are like the dream trees that you get in the dream ghost. Lifeblood, which is the blue temporary health, is like a shield of concentrated soul. And soul, as they say, is an arcane force that is generated by bugs and allows them to move, which is pretty much what essence is a big giant amount of soul. And then our trusty dream nail, which is a weapon that allows the user to go between the dream world and the real world at will. Then, does every living being have essence? They do, because everyone has dreams and wishes, because that's what they're made from. If you have a dream, then you have essence. If you have a wish, you have essence. So the knight and the Hollow Knight have essence. So, we have to do stuff before Hollow Knight existed, which is the land that we call Hollow Nest was ruled by like an ancient caste. There's not too much information about them. All we know is that they followed the wishes of this substance called the Void. And I mean literally, it's called the Void. That is its name. And the caste tried to rule over the land, and they ended up falling into ruin. So, you know, this is just a precursor of what would happen with the Pale King. We love ourselves some funny irony, ain't it? History repeats itself, as they say. And these are the, like, few images of the ancient, like, cast beings, which are these giant as heck bugs. And now, we get in to the birth of Hallownest. So cool. Oh boy. But yeah, they're apparently very giant bugs. Alright. It looks like the big bug in the Tamer by Oz fight, actually. Yeah, it kinda does. Maybe it's a descendant. It is very possible. But yeah. So, we have the worm. Oh, I guess there's like extra space that I got rid of. Hang on. Wee. But yeah, at least I think that's how it's said. I say worm. Worm is big boy. Yes, a worm is big boy. Yes, very big boy. That is the corpse of the worm up there. But yes, hello, Natural. You're not even that late. I'm only 5 slides in. But yeah, this is the worm. It is a big, big entity, because this is just the head of the worm, by the way. This isn't the whole body. And this worm came from very far away to what we call Hallownest. And these creatures are described to have no limbs, but are very, 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 very long. Sum those 5 slides for me. The 5 slides were on the 5th slide. The other slides are literally just this. There was a ancient caste that worshipped the void. They tried to roll over the land of Hallownest. They failed. And then terms like essence, lifeblood, soul, and dreamnail. That's about it. So you're literally at the cusp of everything starting. So, like I said, the worm is a kind of like a long snake that has no limbs. And it also has clairvoyance, so we can see into the future. Which is very ironic for what the future holds in this game. So, it travels to Hallownest from beyond the mountains, the wasteland that we can't go into in the game. I don't know if I have ever seen an F-. That would be surprising. And the worm settles in to Hallownest and perishes. So now it looks like this in the present day. And during the time of the game, there are no more worms around. They're considered an extinct species. Related to the old ones that try to rule the void like cousins. It's definitely possible. From what I've researched, they don't seem to know each other because the worms they're not natives of Hallownest. The test, multiple choice. I don't know. Kind of feels like, But yeah, it might just be, maybe the land of Hallownest is just cursed. Definitely a possibility. For multiple choice, I guess, if you want to see it as multiple choice. So, discrimination. Now, inside of the worm's dead body is a white egg. And this white egg hatches. And that's where the Pale King was born. And the Pale King is apparently just a worm, but tiny. Like, very, very tiny. And he is imbued with gray essence. Which, I should mention, by the way, with essence, because of the enormous amount of essence a being can have, they're considered a higher being, so like a god. By the way, just to put that in perspective of what that is. He pale? He is very This is him. He doesn't look to be the same species, though. Well, if you look at the head, here's the funny thing. Here, if I do this, if I go up to the worm, like if you compare the two, the crown shape is the same, and this lining, kind of similar to the bandages, looks very similar to one another, I would say. So you can definitely tell that he's a descendant of the worm. But he is definitely tiny. Because his egg is even smaller than the knight's. So, higher beings, as I said before, are surrounded by their own colored essence that's unique to them. And some bugs can see the pale... Some of the bugs that live in Hollownest saw the pale gun as a king, and was one that they wanted to be ruled by. He's a short king? Yes, he is. You might move the chat a tad to the right. Oh, oops. Nope, that's not that chat. I want chat. Oh, I made chat disappear. I didn't mean chat to disappear. What the I want... How would I just... No, it's swollen. There's too many things on screen as it is. You want me to add more? We've gone rogue. I wouldn't say you've gone rogue. It's just called I lock things. And moonshine. Don't forget moonshine. Oh my gosh, you don't need this many things on the screen. I'll show them at the end. How's that sound? That fair? We thrive in chaos. I can see that. But is you guys being in the corner fine? I think that works. I don't think that'll cause problems or anything else, will it? No, I think we'll be good. What a deal. You put a pizza in Small Ren's hands. She could be hungry. I'd have to find a pizza, but that's not an impossibility. Oh my gosh. Alright. Step by room and is seen as God. Gotcha. Yes. Sorry, I hate allergies. Anywho, so the king has a goal once he is born, and he wants to draw bugs to be ruled by him to make his own kingdom. Yes, I know the cone hats. Yes, I know the cone hats. Hello? Okay, there we go. So, there are a bunch of groups that have already existed in Hollownest before the king was born. So, you have the bees, the moths, the spiders, the mushrooms, the mantises, and plant bugs. I love that I put so much freaking dialogue in this thing. Golly. So, these colonies have a bunch of history establishment already in Hollownest. And the king was rapidly gaining support from a lot of the bugs that were living in Hollownest. And not all of these colonies were happy to have this new ruler in town. Here's the little bugs. Boop, 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 boom. I could just move them. Whee! Nope, they just cover everything. So, I wouldn't say there was anything like that. So, we'll first talk about the bees, because they're kind of the easiest one to discuss. So, they follow a hive mind system under their queen, which is named Vespa. You'll see her later. So, their response to the Pale King was, do not engage. He does not exist. So they sealed up their hive from the outside and did not interact. The only bees that left the hive were patrol bees, and they would come back and forth to just tell about what's going on in society. Say races can live in prosperity. What the frick are you on? What in the world are you on about? Golly. What are you doing? Anyway. Means wasp in Portuguese. The queen was named Wasp. Well, then that's just funny irony, ain't it? For me, I just think about the tiny little, like, scooter. So I just think of the queen bee literally being on a little scooter. Alright. Boop. Boop. Can I go? Boop. Boop. There we go. No, not that kind of festival. I thought that was funny. Hey, it's spelled the same, is it not? I thought that was hilarious. So, now we have the moths. So, the only living moths in the present day game is in the resting grounds, and they're very pacifist type rays. Well, they used to be. Because we fight some ghost moths in the game. So they have the ability to dive into dreams and the thoughts of the dead. So, like, the bunch of, like, ghosts that we're seeing is, like, the dead. We're seeing the thoughts of the dead. I am not old. And the one who created the moths is a god called the Radiance. Now, if you guys know who the Radiance is, good for you. If you don't, since they're all female, I have no idea if they're all female. Anyway, if you don't remember the Radiance, it's this old friend of ours. Don't you miss her? And I don't know. It wouldn't be an impossibility. I don't know if all of the bees are female. But it is a good question. But yeah, this is the Radiance. Our good old friend everyone missed, right? Makes sense now of the design. As the god of the moths. So, she's the god of dreams. And she is completely made of essence. And that essence is specifically a yellow essence, which is different from the grayish essence of the Pale King. The moths became so obsessed with the Pale King that they completely dropped worshipping the Radiance and decided to go and follow him. Yes, all the bees are ladies. Then, I don't know. Maybe in Hollow Knight they have a different way of reproducing. Who knows? And this dream god faded into, like, a myth. Just a bit of idle gossip that apparently maybe did exist, maybe didn't exist in the minds of the people she created. So, you know, very fun. Now we have, the annoying ones, as I will call them, or the spiders. The spiders live in Deep Nest. And they're actually one of the civilizations that don't have a lot of information about. The New Light, ironic. Yep. And all that we know about them is that there's a monarchy going on. Obviously, you only have the queen. We don't know if there was ever a king of the spiders. So, you know, just like society. And some of the spiders actually aren't from Hollow Nest and actually migrated a long time ago. So, you know, we have that going on. Which also correlates with Silk Song, by the way. To find out stuff about them. Yeah. So, these spiders that migrated over to Hollow Nest, they're called weavers. and they create spells and shields out of silk. So, like the thing on the left, this is one of their spells that they make out of the webs. And they adamantly and aggressively did not want anything to do with Hollow Nest. They wanted nothing to do with the Pale King's growing kingdom. They wanted none of that. So they did not interact. Yeah, they literally weave spells, which makes really cool. They're just chill little guys. And now we have the mushrooms. You remember those guys, those guys. So they live in the fungal waste region. They had no problem with following the worship of the Pale King. They were like, oh sure, why not? Are spells devoid of essence? I think they are imbued with essence. If I had to guess with what it will be used for later, I would assume it's imbued with essence. Very punchable, yes. So, why they so easily agreed to follow the Pale King was because of his ability of foresight. They thought it would be useful and that they would be able to avoid future danger to their race. It did not. Following the Pale King did not help them. But I might be wrong. I think Leo is a different type of mushroom than these silly little guys. Okay, now we got the mantises. So, in another part of the fungal waste, there is the mantises. And they have a very, 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 very long history. They were around before even the ancient caste existed. Like I said at the beginning, so they've been around before them. And they're a very prideful race, and they care a lot about physical strength. So, they are very territorial of their home. So they're old like you. And old like you. Thank you, Paul, for reiterating the fact that they are old. And, yeah, they're very protective of their lands. But if you defeat them in combat, they respect you. And will bow to your strength. Similar to what we see in game. After you defeat the Mantis Lord, they bow to the knight. Is because of that. So, and last, but certainly not least, is the plant bugs. Or also called mosskin, but I like to call them plant bugs because I think it's cute. So, they live in Greenpath. Isn't that the bug from Naruto? Nope. So they were created by a god named Un. That is Un up there, by the way. They're fluffy and cute indeed. Yes, they are. And this god dreamed them into existence. So Un thought to herself that she would like to have creatures of her own image made. And because she dreamed that, they came into being. Yes, she is that god of the lake. Yeah, she literally dreamed her creations into being. And that was because of her green essence. You see the resemblance? I wonder what gives that away. And to thank her, they built a temple for Urn at the lake that she resides in, so that they could worship her. And I think that's very sweet, that they're like, oh, look at her well this world. So one of her creations, the Moss Knights, were the only line of defense for Greenpath to protect against invaders. And Un still had very good control of Greenpath even during the rapid expansion of Hollow Nest. Hello, hello, hello. How you doing? I'm doing good. Hopefully you're doing good. I'm just explaining Hollow Knight lore. I'm at the plant bugs. So hopefully you enjoy. So, these guys completely had no issue or change with them while Hollow Nest was being expanded. And take notes, there's no exam. So, there was a path that was made in agreement with Green Path and Hollow Nest for them to have easy trading routes, so that's why there's pathways that connect easily to Hollow Nest's center of the city into Green Path. Was for easy trading. Alright, now we're gonna get into some weird stuff. But they exchanged. Yes. They exchanged goods, services, things like that. So now we're gonna get into the interesting, mystical stuff. So, outside of Hollow Nest, I love the... Oh, you love them? I thought so hard about the titles, man. I really wanted to make them funny. So, outside of Hollow Nest, which we saw in game is like a deserty area that we can't even enter into, is that it is a wasteland. And it is a dog-eat-dog world out there, and bugs survive on pure instinct. They don't really think, they just do. And the Pale King, when he arrived, changed how bugs think and act. And what I mean by this is, he gave them intelligence. Yes, they were very feral bugs. Yet, he gave them intelligence. I don't know if it was when he was originally the giant worm, and the corpse of the giant worm caused this intelligence to happen, or if it was the birth of the Pale King that made it happen. But bugs were not as intellectually advanced as they are in the game, for the ones that we could talk to. So, the bugs were made smarter, so that the Pale King could actually be worshipped by beings that could understand the concept of a higher being. It's like a man domesticating a bunch of cavemen. Yes, pretty much. So, the Hollow Nest citizens believe that the Pale King created the world and everything in it, so they built statues, like the one above me, to worship him. All over Hollow Nest, and in all different places. Now possessed, they gained sentience. Yes, they gained complete sentience and higher thinking. And the funny part is that lend to this godly-like status that these Hollow Nest residents thought of him, he always hid away from his people. He never really made public appearances. So a lot of mystical stories and thoughts about the Pale King spread throughout the kingdom. Now we got his wife. So, she's the White Lady. And the Pale King, where his palaces is underneath the city. The heart of the city, which is the City of Tears. He is literally underneath there. Get his brain. Who knows? I'm assuming from the worm. So the king stuff like the Egyptians got. Yeah, similar to that. Oh, sorry, just need to drink me tea. So yeah, he let's say the Pale Lady is the City of Tears, right under here is where the palace is. He literally does not disengage. Why, Natural? Why? Anyway, so, the Pale Lady is another godly-like being who has a ton of essence. And she ruled alongside the Pale King. I don't even want to know how the Pale King and the White Lady even consummated their marriage, let alone what they did in the future, so we'll get to that later. So there is not a lot of information on where she came from, how she was born, what she was doing before she met the Pale King. The only known fact about her is that she makes a lot of babies. She has a lot of babies. So many babies that they would not be able to probably fit onto this slide. There's that many babies. Magic anyways, probably. Where'd she go? I don't know. I don't think she met Cotton Eye Joe. So, an industrial revolution happens in Hollow Nest. The use of the lifeblood and soul that I think was very active back in olden times is seen as taboo. And bugs who use that type of combat are socially isolated and outcasted by society. So, under the Pale King, we go into the modern day. Hello, I'm sorry I'm late. What did I miss? Establishing Hollow Nest before Hollow Nest, I guess, is the best way to say it. But not too much. We haven't gotten into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. Oh my gosh, guys, stop. There's not going to be a test. You guys say that. It's not. No, there's no exam. They just like joking. Anyway. So, I never said there was an essay. Anyway. So, the stuff that gets added into Hollow Nest is the trams, the stagways, the royal waterways, the storerooms, the crossroads, trading routes. All of this stuff is been added because of the Pale King's guidance. So a lot of the easy access throughout the game is thanks to the Pale King. So thanks, buddy. You did something good. I'm proud of you, buddy. Behave with this one. Oh, you guys, you're fine. And they also, Hollow Nest started to expand into the crystal mines, which is in the Crystal Peaks, because crystals were considered very valuable, so there was a lot of bugs sent to the Crystal Peaks to do mining for these crystals. So, there was a plan to build one tram from Hollow Nest to Deep Nest, but it was never completed. And you think, oh, why was that not completed? Well, the construction workers were killed by the citizens of Deep Nest. What's Deep Nest? It is a place where the spiders live. You would read my handwriting by then? Who knows? So yeah, they completely killed the construction workers and pretty much made their stance on why they did not want that. So the tram was never finished, and they didn't want any of the tram to be connected to their territory, so it was never finished. So it's just an abandoned area. That live in Deep Nest? Kind of, yes. Pretty much anything related to the spiders is the most of the stuff that lives in Deep Nest. There's not too many other things in Deep Nest, to my memory. So now, the Pale King, he had his own Power Rangers group that were called the Five Great Knights. They are Olgrim, Hegemol, Zamar, Drya, and Ismal. If you're wondering the order of these, and it does. I don't think you write like that. The chunky boy, yes. So the centipedes and flying bugs, that's what little ones or spiders do. I think so. That or they align themselves with the spiders, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to be in there. Or after what happened in the game, they moved into there since there's no one to block them. That to preserve the kingdoms. What the frick? Devil. My gosh. So, if I remember correctly, Zemer is this one. Drya is this one. Ismal is this one. This is Hegemol. We've met Olgrim before. He's the The Dung Defender is, the Dung Defender's the fifth one. Zemer is the only knight, the only knight that is not native to Hollownest. I swear I put not. There we go. Is not a native of Hollownest. She's the only one from outside of the kingdom. And that means all of Hollownest, by the way. So, forgot to save. Probably. We love when that happens. Boop, 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 boop. There's two chunky boys. Yes, there's two chunky boys. So, the Colosseum of Fools. My nemesis for life. So, at the edge of the kingdom, there is a Colosseum called the Colosseum of Fools. Where is Jiggly Knight? He's later in the PowerPoint. So this arena existed before the Pale King arrived. We don't know when it was established. It's just always been around. And bugs from all over, even outside of Hollownest, fight in the Colosseum for glory. And this area is run by the Lord Fool, which is our buddy old pal up there. And the Pale King had a servant who went to this Colosseum and became a champion. And that one was named the Pale Lurker. So, when the royal waterways were made, a new species of bug that no one had ever seen before appeared. And they're called flukes. I do not like flukes. They suck. I thought I had the thing. Hang on. I swear I had all this. I guess it just disappeared. I guess some stuff did not want to save. Spider-Man are climbing the walls. Well, it's so that you could see things. Are there worms? Flukes are, I guess, the closest kind of thing to worms-ish. Let me just show you the stupid freaking fluke thing. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. It's so disgusting. I despise it with a burning passion. Or is he not seen again? Is the Pale Lurker the King of Fools? Oh, I can show you the... I wonder... I think I have her down here. I think I do. I'm pretty sure I do. Is she down here? I swear I got a picture of her. Yeah, she's in here. You'll see the Pale Lurker eventually. She's later in the PowerPoint. Anyway, to show you why I despise the flukes, it's this thing. I hate this thing. I despise this thing. It is gross, and why does it exist? Why does it exist? Looks like I don't want to give you... They look friendly. So, this thing is called the fluke morm. It spits out its young from its cavity. So these whole things, it spits out its young. It's also called the god of motherhood. So yeah, I don't need that in my brain. Let's move on. Sound good? Good. Oh my gosh, please. My goodness. Okay, so Hollownest, it flourished into a modern city, and it had a lot of modern day conveniences that were never there before. Okay, guys, enough with the kitten. So, the bugs in Hollownest became very much not like what their primal selves were like. They're very much like, I don't need to hunt, I don't need to scavenge for food. They pretty much became like marshmallows. They just consume. and they don't do anything. They evolved from something that existed there. We don't know. They just appeared one day. After they finished constructing the royal waterways, they started appearing. So I don't know if they were hidden further deep inside of Hollow Nest, or if they were a mutation. So yeah. Just check us for Kitten Valley. Why were they called Hollow Nest? I do not know. That's the thing. That is something that has never been established of why it's called Hollow Nest. I don't think it's been ever really established. But if I had to take a guess, is that the nest that is where all these bugs are was a very hollow thing, so they were easily able to settle. So it was a nest that was made hollow for new bugs to fill in. As it said, the worm took it out, so it was hollow. It's spelled Hollow Nest. It might be I swear I think Hollow Nest is spelled like this. Is hollow. I think it's spelled with an A. I think it gets because Hollow Knight that you flip-flop them. So, these bugs became very complacent in this new lifestyle and became very greedy individuals. Very, very greedy. Loved gold. Loved food. Consumed. And the king succeeded in his goal. He established a kingdom, had citizens that loved him. So he completed his goal. And he became a beacon of hope for Hollow Nest. Yep, I have a ton of typos, I have realized. I had a bunch of typos in the FNAF one, too. I have a hollow... Does that mean I belong here? I don't think you have a hollow heart. I think that's... Your heart is filled with Jigglypuff, so I don't know how it would be hollow. So, any questions? Besides what we have now? Any other questions before we get into the nitty-gritty? Drunk making this? No, I was multitasking. Because once we get in, we're going to be getting into the infection. So anything about Hollow Nest? No, I have never gotten drunk before, nor do I plan to. So they started becoming depraved and stuff. Yes, they have. They became rich aristocrats, as they say. How's my GPA looking like? I'm assuming it'll be fine. Is the queen the same species as the king? I don't think so. But they're like godly-like beings, so I don't think it would matter as much since they're more godly-like higher beings. Since, if we use the Greek gods as an example, the Greek gods did not have any trouble reproducing tons of gods, even though Zeus and Hera were siblings, so I think it works in the sense of higher beings don't go by the same logic as mortals do. Yes, they became lazy. I don't think they are the same species. There's never been saying they're the same species, but that's how I go about it, is thinking of, like, if you could think of the Greek gods, that's the type of logic I'm working with, is that higher beings don't work with mortal logic. They're kind of outside that. Well, if you want my honest, like, honest goodness guess on how the heck they even had children, I'm thinking maybe they mentally, through dreams, made it into being. Or two, something to do with her roots, something like that. So a connection through that, and that's how babies were born. Perfect, so they aren't limited to species in theory. Yeah, so that's how I think of them. But yes, that's my hypothesis. At least that's my guess. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's the best guess again. No birds and the bees? I don't think so. Because we've never even been described by the Greek gods of how they made their children. So who knows? No, we're not having the talk. I'm saying that they are higher beings, so I think they did it. Or just magic. Might be a ton of magic. Like, they took their essence and merged their essence together to create children is also a possibility. So anything, there's a lot of possibilities. So, are we ready? Now on to the infection. Logical conclusion. Yeah, but I'm meaning, like, not in the actual act, but yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, now on to the infection. Because this one's a doozy. So, remember the radiance? If you didn't remember, you're just like the moths, so good job. So, most moths, which is mostly probably 98% of the moths, didn't remember the radiance at all. Didn't care. Don't remember, none of that. There were only a few of them that remembered. Why? No, that's a statue. I'm forgetful too. So, only a few of them remembered their creator, the Radiance, and they were the older generation, and they told stories of the Radiance from the past. What she did for them, how they were created, things like that. And these stories and these older generations were the only ones that kept this god from completely disappearing from existence. What in the world are you on about? Golly. So, at the top of Crystal Peak is the only statue of the Radiance that exists, which is this statue. This was made so that the Radiance would still exist. Even if the older generation died off, their memories and imbued thoughts would be permeated inside the statue. And the younger generation, even if they didn't understand quite what this statue was about, they knew of its existence, so she would never disappear. Very Fear and Hunger statue. Moth. Yes, it is a moth. So, the infection. Hello. Welcome, welcome. So because of them, it returned. Yes. Yes, she never disappeared. She was just in the background. Remember me, yes. So, yes, you can. Golly, guys, go ahead. You can take a bathroom break. So, the infection is caused from light. And you'd be like, light? What do you mean? So, remember how the Radiance has yellow essence? So, that essence is seen as light. And that essence started to appear in Hollowness Bug's dreams. So they're also changed. So, the Radiance's light from the dream became a physical infection inside the minds of the bugs, and it completely overtook Hollowness. And an infected bug would fall into a deep, deep sleep, almost like they were dead. And then they would wake up with their mind shattered. That intellectual bug does not exist anymore. They are back to their primal urges and would attack any bugs that weren't infected. They don't attack each other. They'll attack only non-infected and so zombies but spread through dreams. Yes. So, all of these bugs are controlled by the Radiance through a hive mind. She literally controls every single itty bitty bug that has the Radiance infection. And because of this, it spread rapidly. And the Heart of Hollowness and the City of Tears was completely closed off. It was quarantined. And they were trying to contain this infection from getting into the inner part of the city. He's a little bit for the people. Yes, in a way, I think that is a good example of that, yes. I think she took over their light. It's a good way of seeing it. So the stagways that used to be an easy way of transportation, closed off. Waterways for access, closed off. Trade routes, closed off. Everything's closed. And because that the stagways were closed off, most of them, the stags died, passed away, rapidly declined in population. How did everyday life work here? I think like a regular city, completely regular city, didn't have anything. How is this going to affect the trout population? I don't think there's trouts in this game. Well, they didn't really understand that it was from dreams yet. They didn't know how it would spread. Is it from... How does it appear in their dreams? Is it from another bug that was already infected? Is it from the air? Is it from what they drink? Is it from what they eat? They don't know what it is. How is this affecting the climate? Very horribly for them. They had no chance. Yeah. So, there were some people, some bugs as they say, that were trying to find like an encounter to this infection. So the scholars of the Soul Sanctum, which was a society, a big bunch of scholars that studied and tried to understand soul. They were trying to understand how to harness the power of the soul. Because they thought, oh, if we get a bunch of soul imbued together into our bodies, we can counteract against the Radiance's essence. So, to get a lot of soul, they killed hundreds of bugs. From draining their soul from their body to inject it into the scholars. I repeat, they drained living bugs to death for their soul. So, this experiment of imbuing the soul into their bodies was to give them pure focus. If they're completely focused all the time, then there's no way that the Radiance can overpower them. Well, the opposite effect happened. This would make them, theoretically, if we're purely focused, the infection is not going to get us. Well, the Soul Master, the leader of these mages, was driven mad by the amount of soul imbued into his body. Went completely crazy with all this soul from all these different bugs inside of his body. And the same thing happened to the rest of the mages. And they, not long after, fell to the infection. So yeah, that failed. So the mantises. The mantises are a complicated thing. Yes, the power got to their heads. Quite literally. Anyway, let me fix that. So, so this mantis is going to be important later. So, the mantises have a stronger will than the typical average bug. So mantises were not infected by the infection because they had a strong willpower against the radians. This buddy, right behind me, is one of the mantis lords. The only male mantis lords. There was 4 mantis lords, by the way. He was the only boy. He rebelled against his older sisters and said, I think the Radiance's infection is a good thing. So him and his followers willingly let themselves be overtaken by the infection. And they believed that the infection would make them stronger and more powerful. So they were consumed by the Radiance. Imagine they didn't go feral. No, they did. They did. They have a little bit more control than the average bug did under the infection, but they still went close, and they were like teetering above completely losing their sanity. They're like on a balancing beam. So it's barely intact. But it's there. So, this guy got dubbed the Traitor Lord. And him and his infected underlings, they were exiled to the far corner of the Queen's Garden. Yes, the Mantis Lords, the 3 Mantis Lords, yeah, they're female. This is the only male. They're all, he had 3 sisters. He's the only boy. Does the Traitor Lord's Rebellion have on the stock market? I don't know if that would have effect on the stock market, as it would be less troops inside of the Mantis civilization, so I think it would just cause issues. So, this was the biggest shock to me. Are you guys ready for this one? I wasn't ready. Okay. So, the Traitor Lord had a child. We don't know who the other parent was of this child. We just know that this child behind me is the Mantis Lords. She was in a relationship with one of the Great Knights, Zemer. Now, yes, Zemer, I don't know how Zemer met this daughter. The daughter doesn't have a name. But they were very, very in love with each other. Would do anything for each other. Sadly, the Mantis tribe rejected their relationship because Zemer was an outsider of Hollownest. Can we give her one? I guess. If you want to give her a name. But yeah, this is her. If you can give her a name. But yeah, so once the Traitor Lord was exiled, Zemer's lover, or I guess Sasha. Okay, I guess Sasha. Sasha was also exiled with her father. Suspicious. And they never saw each other again. Zemer never got to see her lover ever again. At least in life. And Sasha's grave is in the heart of the Queen's Garden. Literally called the Traitor's Child. And passed away at some point. We don't know if it was from the infection, if it was from her father, or anything. Just she died at some point. So, besides the one child that we didn't know gave her refuge, the Queen wasn't around-ish during the Queen's Garden. The Queen didn't really involve herself with the Mantises That is, the mantises were very aggressive. I think I have it in the slides, I'm pretty sure. Did I put her further down? Yes, I did. Probably. Anyway, so the simplest thing is that the queen is locked inside of this circular egg being protected by Dryia during the parts of 1 to keep out the infection, and 2 because her garden was being overrun by the traitor mantis's people. So the queen didn't really give her refuge, they kind of just made themselves comfortable in her garden, and she hid herself away. So, the 5 Great Knights couldn't do anything against this infection because it was happening all in the dreams. They had no power or ability to deal with the dream world. Is the void sentient? Yes. Yes, it is. Now, is it of one mind? I don't know. So the Pale King makes a plan that involves void. Involves the void. The palace, which, is underneath the City of Tears, was built on top of an ancient basin that contains the void. So it's like instinct. Can we give it a name? What, the void? It's named the void. That is its name. It's literally the void. I'd say we named the void tar. Oh boy. So, the ancient basin contains a little sealed off area called the Abyss. And inside the Abyss is a lake that is completely darkness. There's no light. And it is entirely composed of void. And the king found a way to take this void and give it a physical form. And created these guys. And you'd be like, these guys? How were they created? So, these guys were made in a mold. So, there is an imprint in the Abyss. So, like, on a wall, there's, like, scratched in, I think, or there's a tablet that explains how to make void into a solid form. And it was found out by the ancient cast. Ah, no. Not that type of mold. And no, I did not eat mold. Chris did, thank you very much. So yeah, the Pale King found instructions to make void into a solid form. Just lying around from the ancient cast. So, it's Kris, Chris from Deltarune. What type of mold? A mold that you shape things around. So, what is this? Okay. We're telling me the followers were made in Abyss? Yes. Well, ain't that convenient? It is. So, see this? I'll explain it. Golly. So, in the Pale King's workshop, he would take a bunch of void, and he had a bunch of armor shells, which are these little, so these are a bunch of shells of, like, just plated armor. And he would put the void in to this armor, and it would mold itself to fit the armor. Because of the soul that was imbued into these armor, the void attached to it and made these physical beings. So, these guys are called the king molds and wing molds. This is the king molds, these are the wing molds. They were born from this process. And they are completely loyal to the Pale King. They were imprinted with the Pale King's essence, so they would never rebel or betray the king. So they were completely loyal followers of the king. So, oh boy. the Pale King thought that, believed that making something out of void would be able to contain the infection and the radiance and completely get rid of this outbreak. So, this being that would be completely made of void would be a pure vessel. A being that would have no will of its own. And the infection only works through a host that has a will of its own. So if it has no will, then the radiance can't control it. So, by making the vessel pure and containing the radiance in it, Hollinus would be free from the infection. Yay! He could rule his kingdom with no issues. So he got to work. How does it decide with no will? That's the thing. That's the interesting part, ain't it? How do you make something with no will? So he thought of a way to do so. We have the king's children. Hello, hello, hello. Or, aka, the sacrifices. So, the king and the white lady became intimate, and those intimate moments, whether that was through magic, through any other means, eggs were made. And there was a lot of eggs. There were so many eggs. So many eggs. The room would be full of eggs. And these eggs were then dropped into the abyss. So yeah, as soon as they were made, they were immediately dropped into the abyss. And they, living in the abyss, would absorb the void. This process of throwing the eggs into the void corrupted the eggs and killed the babies inside the eggs. Was the queen okay with that? She agreed to it. She knew about this and went along with the plan. So yeah, all of those corpses are all the babies from all the eggs. So yeah. So these children were technically never born. So they never had any type of reproductive organs, things like that. So they are all genderless. They have no gender or identifying characteristics of the sort related to gender. But they did have individuality with the different types of height of horns, how many, like, spikes there were on them, things like that. And these children's bodies could only move because of a shadow that they had within their bodies, which we call a shade, which is this buddy right here. And what I mean by, I'm meaning like reproductive organs, by meaning of gender, by the way. I'm not meaning like identification. They have no reproductive organs whatsoever to identify with what society would call them. Yeah, they have nothing of the sort. That's what I mean. When I mean by genderless, I mean they have nothing. They are completely clean slate. They can't have children. They're also dead, so I don't know how that works. Little Lord, when. Maybe in the future. Don't know when that will be, but the future. And there was thousands of them. Thousands of them. As you can see over there, that's only a little tiny itty fraction of them. They were all made, but only one of them was going to be chosen as the pure vessel. Oh boy. Now we get to meet the oldest sibling, the Hollow Knight. Mets Smallrun. Oh boy. Maybe, I don't know if it'll be the next one. It would be something in the future. So, the one vessel that got picked was to be the pure vessel. Why was unnamed? What the frick? Was named the Hollow Knight by the king. They did not have any name before. They literally all had no names. So, they were taken out of the abyss and entered into the palace. And was trained and raised to consume the radiance. So they were trained in the art of the nail. They were given a nice place to sleep. Talked with the king. Things like that. But yeah, because of the nail arts that the Hollow Knight learned, for some reason they rapidly grew in height. This is what the Hollow Knight looked like, but when they left the abyss, this is what the Hollow Knight looked like after training for a little while. As you can see, the growth is rapid, and no one knows why. Because they are technically dead, so how did they grow? Big difference, yes, a big difference. So, once the Hollow Knight was picked as the vessel, the rest of the siblings were sealed off in the abyss. DeWill just saying, maybe. So, yeah, all the other siblings, pretty much he was like, oh, I don't need you guys anymore, I already picked the vessel. Bye-bye. And literally closed off the abyss. It was sealed off. No one could go in or out. And the Pale King and the White Lady did feel shame and regret for pretty much killing their children in the abyss. Making them fight their way up to the top to be picked. And then sealing them away for all of eternity. But in their mind, there was no better solution to save the kingdom, so they did it. And in the Hollow Knight community, some people think that why the Hollow Knight was picked was because they made it out of the abyss first. Because we don't know how the Hollow Knight was picked, but based on the one flashback that the knight, the main character, plays as, we, the player, plays as, is that the Hollow Knight is at the top of the abyss with the Pale King. So we assume that it's probably got to the top before anyone else. Is why the Hollow Knight was picked of all of the vessels or children. So, the children were not the only poor beings that were left inside of the abyss. There was a lighthouse built inside of the abyss on a cliff, and a royal retainer was stationed there to keep the light on, to contain the abyss from spreading. Excuse me, the void from spreading. We look like a side character. Look more like the main character than we did. I think that's the point, because it's literally called The Hollow Knight, the game is called The Hollow Knight. So technically, it is his story. So yeah. There was a royal retainer that would keep the light of the lighthouse on the void. Did they kick their boots? Yes, the Hollow Knight technically did do that. Like their own boots, I don't know. But yeah, this royal retainer was ordered to stay in the abyss to keep the light of the lighthouse on. And they stayed inside the abyss until they died. So yeah, they were locked up in a place of eternal darkness with the dead children of the king to keep a light on. No, she is not. She's alive and around. Now, this was the, so now we're getting into the Dreamers, which are the other part of the plan for the king. The Pale King needed seals for the Hollow Knight. Because once the Hollow Knight is containing the radiance, to keep it away from everyone else, it needs to be sealed away. So, he searched for the perfect bugs to be the seals for the Hollow Knight. And 3 bugs were chosen. Lauren the Watcher, Manuman, the Teacher, and Hura, the Beast. Getting into more specifics about them, Lauren is a he is a native citizen of the City of Tears. He lives in the Watcher's Spire, which is one of the tallest buildings inside the City of Tears. He would keep an eye on the city through his telescope, so I don't know if he was a lookout, if he was one to just keep information. We just knew that that's what his job was. So now the Ale King. Reign the Pale King. Now it's the Ale King. Well, think of it like that. So, some people, and this is people as in people in the community, think that there's a connection between Lauren and the Collector, which we'll talk about in a sec. The main point of evidence is the jars in the background of Lauren's room that look very similar to old Buddy Boy. We're not crazy. And like Spire sometimes will slay them. So, the Collector was made from the same mold as the mold soldiers of the king. And the Collector lives in the Tower of Love with the Noblebug caretaker. Golly, I can't English. And the caretaker and the Collector were tasked with collecting bugs and putting them in jars. For what that reason was, we don't know. But one particular bug caught the Collector's attention, and that was the grubs. Yeah, they don't look the same, but the mold is the only way to put void into being, and the Collector is made out of void. So it's not the same armor, but I'm pretty sure it is made from the same construct. So the same steps, but a slight different result came out. But yes, he became so obsessed with grubs that he made a diagram shrine of the grubs. He made a diagram of the grubs. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they took the steps that the king did to make the molds and made the Collector from them by slightly altering the molds and imbuing something else with essence, with the soul, and that's how the Collector came into being. So, the caretaker of the Collector one day decided to seal this creature away in the tower. Biggest mistake they ever made. Yep. And this caretaker bug, after locking away the Collector, ran to the Queen's garden. Whether that was to escape the infection or to run away from the Collector, we don't know. But it soon died after it made it to the Queen's garden. And what that was the cause of death was not even the infection. It was overexposure to void. And it's not clear how Lauren was involved with this creature, because there's never actual expressed dialogue, but that's what people think. It's like radiation. Kind of. So now Manomon. So she lives in the teacher's archives in the Fog Canyon. And it's a library that is built on top of a lake of acid. And there's a bunch of jellyfish-like bugs in her laboratory that are in tubes similar to what she's in right now and around the area. And since she also has like similar appendages, there seems to be some connection. Whether she created them or not, we don't know. So they might not be natural bugs. But yeah, she loves collecting and knowing information. So she used a lot of futuristic tubes to store all of the information about Hollownest inside of it. And there's a tablet inside of her lab that tells the details of the king's plan for the seals. So she was very aware of what type of deal she was getting into when it came to working with the Pale King. So she knew exactly what was going to happen to her during that time. Hera. This one's the big one. She is the Queen of Deepnest. And she, obviously being the leader of Deepnest, did not like the king. She did not like the king. At all. And she would only agree to be a seal for a trade. For her to be a seal, she wanted to have a child. That Mon created. Ooh, yes, she did. Is she the one that asked Jade for becoming a dreamer? Yes. Why is Zeus's wife here? That's a different spelling. But yes, her requirement for her to be a seal was for her to have a child. So the Pale King agreed, and the two of them made a child. And that is how Hornet was born. There's no, like, solid reason why Hera wanted a child. There's never really a specific reason. Some people speculate is that she needed an heir, because there is no King of Deepnest. There's no other children of Hera, only Hornet. So maybe she was supposed to be the new Queen of Deepnest once Hera became the seal. And I said, like, to be a seal. Not that type of seal. So, Hornet is actually named the gendered child. I'm not kidding, that is what she is called. This title is to say that, unlike her siblings before her, she was not put into the abyss at all. So she is actually alive. To actually make an elaborate child for her. We don't know, that's the thing. Was she infertile? We don't know. There's never specifics about it. But there was no King of Deepnest, there was no other children, so we have no idea. So, Hera and Hornet didn't really interact with each other really that much. Because, you know, after Hornet was born, Hera had to do her end of the deal. And shortly after her birth, her mother was turned into the seal. So she was never able to really interact with her. And when Hornet grew up, she left Deepnest after the sealing of the Hollow Knight, and she would protect the Worm's corpse from outsiders. Why she did this particular thing, we don't know. I think she was trying to make sure that the next heir of Hollownest would be someone who was worthy. But yeah, that's where she is until the beginning of the game. So, with all these three bugs recruited to be the seal, the king put them into a deep sleep. And what in the world did I spell? The golly, I can't English. The consciences of the dreamers, and made them as the basis for the seals for the black egg. Which, this egg over there is the chamber that was going to hold the Hollow Knight. And these seals would block anyone from entering the chamber. You could go you could see outside the door, but once you tried to open it, you couldn't open it at all. It's like a solid wall that you could not break through. It is a hard one. Yes, it is. Is 9% Pale King's fault and 10% of the Radiance's. Yes. And the Dreamers had their servants guard and protect their bodies, because if something happened to their bodies, their seal goes away. So, obviously, they are going to be completely vulnerable because their souls are not in their bodies. But they're still intact, so they're like the equivalents of ghosts that are still attached to their bodies. So, Hera had the Spider's Protector. Lucian had the mages protect him. And Monomon had Quirrell. Is that an incubator? I think it's just a sleeping chamber. But Quirrell was Monomon's servant, and she gave Quirrell a mask. And this mask was a key. And this mask had to be given to be able to unlock Monomon's chamber to be able to get to her body. So she had double protection from outsiders from trying to get to her. Oh, we're halfway, everybody. Alright. So, the Pale King also got in contact with the Weavers. Why do they even want her White Lady better? I don't know why. There was some reason that those three were particularly perfect for being these seals. So, why do we know that the Weavers were contacted by the Pale King? Is because inside of the Weaver's Den, there's an incomplete seal of binding, which is the one above me. And this seal is also seen inside of the White Palace, on the walls of the White Palace, and in the Hollow Knight fight. So, you know the white, entity that keeps you locked in during the fight? That's the seal from the Weavers. And that is very interesting. That is what's keeping you, the player, and the Hollow Knight still stuck inside of the black egg, even after getting rid of the seals. It was his last line of defense. So, since the Hollow Knight has completely grown and is considered ready, they were put inside of the black egg and channeled the radiance inside of them. I don't think there's any pink entities that I can think of right now. How many slides remain? There's 100 of them. We're on slide 53. So, yeah, they were put inside the egg. They were channeled they channeled the radiance. And as soon as the radiance was channeled inside, chains were imbued into their body. And the egg was closed, the seals were put on, the Weaver's binding spell was put on, and they were sealed away. Yeah, I don't know. The thing is that the radiance is not in the real world. They are strictly in the dream world. So I think that the Pale King could not actively engage with the radiance because of their being stuck in the dream world. Yeah, go make coffee. Here, any questions? Any questions about the infection and the Hollow Knight and the process? A puncher in the dream, though? Because there's probably a possibility of being infected. We don't know if higher beings can be infected, though. Just go make your coffee! Since he could have chained the infection inside him. Maybe he didn't want to do it, or he couldn't. Because he does have a will. His theory is that if you have a will, you can be overtaken by the infection. So yeah, is any character shown so far your type? Not really. There's a lot of characters that have done some dumb things and some questionable things, so I wouldn't, If you have a question, what is the question? Where is the food they said there would be? There's a ton of food in their, storage room that they have in the city, so, that's my guess. What is the wording I want to use? But yeah, my guess is that based on the Pale King's theory, you need to not have a will, or dreams, or thoughts, to be able to be a vassal for the Radiants. So he would not qualify because he has complicated thoughts. Since, he's the reason that a lot of the bugs have complicated, higher intellect. There is no test. If there's no other questions, I will move on to the next one. Play has a will. They converse, helps people learns. That's the thing, though. As what has been said, there is technically impossible to have a pure vessel because they, as you said, they move, they talk, they help people, they learn. Meaning they have a will because they make decisions. But you also have to remember, the Pale King didn't think of his children that way. He thought of them as undead zombies with no will. So, how about a seal break? Well, it's an adorable seal. That is an adorable seal. Oh, my goodness. Okay. How many slides do I have for the next section? Probably quite a few. Yeah. So, guys, by the way, this is all stuff that has happened before the game. This is not even the game. This is all before the game even happens, by the way. This is all pre-game information. Yes, quite flawed, that king. Yes, he was. Alright. Hallownest Limbo. Here we go. Here we go. So, the king's plan seemed to have successfully worked. That larva that asked to rescue her children, did he eat them because he was affected by the plague, or was he using his own stomach as a cocoon for them? There's not really too much information about those. I didn't go into the details of every individual boss fight. If I have time at the end of the stream, we can look into individual bosses and see if I can find answers for that. I don't know particular bosses. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess the infection affected her babies and they ate her eyes. So she became blind. So that's my guess. Alright, so yeah. The sealing of the Radiance seemed to have worked. So statues, like the one behind me, were made in memory of the Hollow Knight and the Three Dreamers inside of the City of Tears and the Rusting Grounds. Bugs from Dirtmouth, which, is the one city, on top of Hallownest, they would come there to visit the eggs, same as the other bugs, to pay respects and pray, to thank the Hollow Knight for their sacrifice. Same thing with the Dreamers. And many bugs, after coming back from seeing the black egg would say they felt at peace whenever they were near the black egg. But at some point in time, bugs stopped coming to visit the egg. The infection was seeping through cracks of the egg and going into the air. And after years and years and years, the infection reached all the way to the deepest part of Hollow Nest, from one side to the other, completely made its way all around. When the night is hollow. The night is always technically hollow. Well, not really. It was the entire time with the radiance, so, I guess technically it was not hollow. So, why was this the case? Yes, they had a pandemic. So, why was the infection seeping out? Well, because the Pale King messed up, and his theory was flawed. There was no... The pure vessel, the Hollow Knight, was not actually a pure vessel with no thoughts. Because there was a single thought instilled into the Hollow Knight's mind. And that was a memory. This memory, which is what is above me, is when you peer into the Hollow Knight, is during their time when they probably first arrived in the palace, and they're just sitting there with the king, enjoying each other's company. You have a business. Golly, now. Just go take the call. It won't go. We'll probably not be that far along. Golly. I could probably take a quick break after I finish the slide. So, yeah, the memory was just the two of them sitting, enjoying each other's company. And because of that, the Hollow Knight developed a parental bond with the Pale King. So they then became not a vessel, they became a being with will. Which that will can be tampered with by the Radiance. Which the Radiance then used the Hollow Knight's body to slowly seep out the infection. Very sad he failed because he loved his... Yes, he failed because he had a bond with with their father. Ain't that sweet? So yeah, in the fungal waste, there is a mushroom, a giant mushroom, this guy over here, that is considered the leader of the mushrooms. And it had gotten on its last legs and was slowly dying. But as it passed away, it spoke out to the world. And it said, why did the king try to... How do I want to say this? The highest shrooms. Yes. So, this Mushroom King questioned the actions of the Pale King. Since he is clairvoyant, because remember, the Pale King has the ability of foresight, so he knew the infection was going to happen. So, why was he trying to delay the inevitable if he knew what was going to happen? And because of that, his kingdom collapsed. Boop, 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 boop. Oh boy. Now I'm gonna whoop and a whoop. So, because the Hollow Knight failed to successfully contain the Radiance, the king fled. Yeah, when it got tough, the king hid himself away with himself, his molds, the king's mold and the wings mold, and his court inside of the dream world. And at some point in time, the king dies and passes away while sitting on his throne. And there is a theory that is that the void is the reason why the Pale King died. Now you would say, how would the void even get to the king in the dream world? Or even get there at all? Well, during the game, when the knight goes into the abyss, you have to turn on the light. So the lighthouse did not have its light turned on. So the void was free to move as it pleased. So the theory is that the abyss, that in the abyss, the void convinced the lighthouse keeper to turn off the lighthouse light. And then it traveled all the way to the king to kill the Pale King. Similar to how, like, the collector's caretaker died from overexposure to void. Some people theorize that he died of that same thing. Sweet, sweet revenge. Yeah, in a way it is. And you kind of have to think that the void has the imbued consciousness of the siblings as well. Because the siblings and his children are made of the void. So you could theorize that the siblings got revenge using their void against him. So, during this time, by the way, because they thought it was peaceful, so during the time of everything still being locked up, because, you know, when you think something's over, you still want to be careful. So things were not opened up. The bugs that were locked inside of the City of Tears, they had no connection to the outside world of Hollow Nest. And they were so desperate for food, they resorted to cannibalism. And some of them died because they were defeated and eaten by other bugs. Others were turned into infected bugs. Some died from no food. It's good to foresee a demise unavoidable. Yeah, that's the quote from the Mushroom King. Ain't that a quote? So yeah, the only one citizen of the City of Tears is alive, and that is Eterna Emiliata. You know, the happy little bug that goes da 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 da. She's the only one who didn't die. She's completely fine. She's not infected. She's not hungry. She's fine. She's just living her best life. So, remember how about the queen? So remember, the king ran away and hid himself. The white lady didn't go with him. She, to rally against nature's folly, all things was accepted. Well, that is a good quote from the queen, Vespa. So yeah, the white lady, she put herself inside of a cocoon, this cocoon here, in the queen's garden. And she puts bindings around herself. White lady's fate is a funny sentence. Yes, it is. She put bindings around her so that she wouldn't be able to produce any more offspring. Now what that means is, who knows, can she produce offspring all on her own? I don't know. I don't really want to know. And she repents and feels constant guilt over her children being put into the abyss and put through all of this horrible trials and events and didn't even get a chance to live. And the bindings around her body diminish her power, so her essence is not really easy to find, so she was hiding. So, to explain, I just gotta scroll up to find her again, because I put her all the way up here. So this is bindings. This isn't part of her body. These are the bindings that she put on herself. So yeah, she put that on her to stop having babies and for guilt. And to also hide herself. So yeah. And she was also being protected by Drya over here. She was the White Lady's most trusted companion. So she obviously followed the White Lady and protected her from any outside invaders, specifically the traitor Mantis Lord. So, what happened to the 5 Great Knights? Well, Drya, the one up there, she guarded the White Lady's cocoon, and she protected the queen from the Mantis group, traitor Mantis group, and she was killed in combat with the Mantis Lord. That's why when you go into the that part of the area before you get to the queen, you see the Mantis Lord. So yeah, Drya died in combat. Hedgemold, which is this is the only image, by the way, of Hedgemold. We don't know what Hedgemold looks like. This is his armor, by the way. We don't know what he actually looks like. Is that the traitor who killed Drya, but Drya placed a curse upon that would block off access to the queen unless the traitor lord died? That is a reasonable theory, because it is surprising that after Drya died that no one had access to the White Lady at that time. Would the Hornet be a hollow or what? Hornet is not a hollow, that's the thing. She was not put into the abyss, so she is not hollow, as they would say. She doesn't have a shade. She's like a regular bug. Well, as regular as having a higher entity as your father and a spider as your mother, so. Yeah, she is not part of the void. So, Hedgemold, his armor, was stolen by a maggot. Yes, a maggot. Stole his armor. Why would the maggot take one of the 5 Great Knights' armor? It wanted to defend its brethren. Because the maggots were considered the lowest of the low. And yeah, the maggots, for whatever reason, were not affected by the infection, not the affection. Why? Hedgemold alive. Well, from our understanding, I would not like to think that. I'm hoping that he is alive and well somewhere. Infection, not affection. And yeah, the maggot, literally of its own will, decided to take Hedgemold's armor. Just completely took his armor. There's not really an answer if Hedgemold is alive or not. We don't know where he is, if he's alive, what he actually looks like. All we know is what his armor looks like. He tested and studied. There's not gonna be a test. Now, Orgrim, which is our buddy old pal over here, and Ismail, they decided to go to the royal waterways. Orgrim to this day is still very loyal to the king and still thinks, like of the past, of the heyday of Hollow Nest as very happy and fondly. And he made statues of his friends out of dirt in his new home in the royal waterways. So he defended why the waterways for one specific reason, was because of his best friend Isma. And she had a little grove that she made for herself. So he is outside of that grove, and he's protecting that area for his best friend. Isma's grove, at one point, becomes filled with acid. We don't know why that is the case. It could be from the plants. We don't know what. But Isma, at some point, dies and is overtaken by the plant life inside there. They were roommates. Yeah, they're kind of our roommates, aren't they? By the way, if you want to know, Ogrim doesn't know that Ismail is dead, by the way. He has no idea that his close friend has passed away. We don't know how long she's been gone, but yeah, he has no idea. And you'd be like, how does he not know? He went there to protect her. Well, there's a reason. He was protecting her from something. And that something was the God-Seekers. These God-Seekers traveled to... Well, based on what... He might know, he might not know. He just doesn't know for a fact or not. Because he hasn't left his post. This group is from outside of Holonest. They traveled to Holonest. And you're like, why did they go to Holonest of all places? Miss you, I miss you. Well, here's the thing. I miss you could be reasons of not being able to see her. Maybe she's busy. We don't know the whole things of how. Because if he misses her, why wouldn't he be going right to where her body is and protecting it? Why is he staying out there is because of the God-Seekers. So, at least there's not a thing of like, I think he misses the heyday more than if he knows or not. But I guess that depends on your understanding or how you interpret the dream nail lines, how he talks just in general, his actions. Really depends. So, the God-Seekers. These buddies, they were abandoned by their gods, which were, by the way, these gods are literally called the God of Thunder and the God of Rain. Why they were abandoned, we don't know why. Did they leave? Who knows? But they left their home. You don't like them? I don't think those gods liked them either. So they left their home, that's literally called the Home of Storms, to find new gods to follow and worship. And they have a constant obsession with finding a god. And there's a reason why. They're not just god obsessed for the sake of it. They are obsessed with gods because worshiping these gods helps them to have thoughts in their silent minds. If they don't have a god, they don't really have thoughts, and they're stuck in silence. If I was given such a basic name by my followers, I would leave too. I don't blame. Yeah, it is very basic, isn't it? But yeah, they have very silent minds, and they need to have it filled with gods. Cute statue. That's not actually a statue, that's actually what they look like. Kind of. Okay. So, they're traveling around by following the guidance of this thing over there. This thing. Called the God Tuner. This device is something that allows them to find new gods. It literally points them in the direction. Alongside their god? I think that's a possibility. I'm not really sure. They consider Soul Warrior and Vengeful Fly to be gods. Yes, they are so desperate to not be in complete silence. They'll worship almost anything they consider strong. And because of the lingering essence of the Pale King in Holonest, the God Tuner picks it up. So then the God Seekers head towards Holonest. And for some reason, once they got to Holonest, they're forced into hibernation. We don't know why. There's no specific reason why they're put into hibernation. They just go into hibernation. And where they sleep is this cocoon-like thing right here that, looks like a sarcophagus. Why it looks like a sarcophagus, we don't know why. But that's where they decided to hibernate. And this cocoon is located in the waterways in a place called the junk pit. And some people theorize that they were chained up by Ogre. Because obviously, I don't think they would chain themselves inside. But they were chained up by something. And the only thing down in the waterways that is still alive is Ogre. Mummy aesthetics? Maybe. And Ogre has expressed why he hasn't left his post in the waterways is because of something that exists that he has to protect. So he's trying to protect Isma from whatever is in the junk pit, which we assume is these guys. Yay! So because of these guys, he can't even see his dead friend. Alright, so you remember Un, everybody, right? So, chaos is happening in Green Path. Because, for some reason, the Mosskin are trying to hear their call of their creator to bring them back to the dream world to be with Un. But for some reason, her strength has deteriorated, and so has her power. Whether that's from the Radiance taking control, we don't really know. But she's trying to call out to them, and they can't hear her. Most of them cannot hear her at all, so they feel that they've been abandoned. So some of the Mosskin, in that desperation, take in the affection onto their bodies to protect themselves from enemies, since they can't hear their gods, so they think they're abandoned. And there is so specifically, the Vagabonds surrender to the Radiance to be protected, and they forsake Un for that. No picture of Un. You've seen Un. Un's up here. I didn't think I needed to re-put Un up here. Where is Un? How far away? This is Un. I didn't think there was a reason to put Un if you've already seen Un. Now I have to find it again. So, hive mind to hive mind, which is the simplest explanation, became forsake Un. Yes, she did. So, the bees also fell to the infection. Maybe it's just us. It's okay. It's because there's a lot of frickin' information in this thing. So yeah, once Queen Vespa over here died, we don't know if it was from the infection, from illness, we have no idea why. And the hive really didn't change much after the Radiance infected the entire hive, because, they were already part of a hive mind, so just changing from one hive mind to the next hive mind didn't really do too much. She got too big. That is a possibility. But the bees were imbued with the thought of protecting a queen that wasn't there anymore. So they still had themselves sealed off from the rest of Hollowness and all that. So, the moth tribe during this time was almost completely wiped out. Whether that was purposeful because the Radiants wanted revenge or not, who knows? I think it was a little bit of revenge, if I had to be honest. The only survivor of the moth tribe is Seer, which is the old lady over here. She continued her duty of the tribe, which was to take care of the graves and the resting grounds. I think it probably was. It probably was. So yeah, she continued the job of the moths of being the grave keepers, kept watching over the graves of everyone that was put in those graves, kept them in tip-top shape, things like that. And she was waiting for someone. This someone was a wielder of unknown being that her tribe has had visions about for a very long time. And remember, these guys can look into dreams. So they have been, for who knows how long, have been waiting for this wielder to appear to destroy the Radiance. So, our buddy old pals in the Colosseum. Are you gonna make me ban the word old pole? You really want me to ban the word old and granny? Or senior citizen? Do I need to add these into my banned words? I wouldn't. Ask Natural that question. I think Natural knows the answer to that. Alright. So, the worm's corpse, this entire time, finally starts to decompose. It wouldn't be fair. We'll see. It's fine. Alright. Link's about to fall, but the star is definitely sold. Ha ha ha. So, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because the Pale King died, because the Pale King went to the dream world, or both, but yeah, the worm's corpse starts to decompose. So the ash starts to fall over Kingdom's Edge. So that white stuff is the ash of the body of the worm. So, at some point, the Lord of Fools, the head of the Colosseum, he dies. Like, he literally just dies on his throne for whatever reason. And, you know, the residents of the Colosseum don't really care that much. They just continue the Colosseum as normal. And yes, the Fools, as the residents of the Colosseum of Fools are called, yeah, they were infected by the Radiance, but for whatever reason, they still have their independence and can still think slightly. Kind of similar to the traitor Mantis Lord. So, yeah, I think it's maybe because they were so close to the ravenous nature of what bugs were before that there really wasn't much to change about them. My God, Tamer. That is a possibility, but why would the body then still be there? So yeah, you want to know the Pale Lurker? This is the Pale Lurker. Yeah, the champion, Pale King's champion, the Pale Lurker, her over here, she was driven insane by an obsession, which is this little thing here that she went to the end. Who took his place as leader of fools as a trophy, obviously. Maybe. Definitely a possibility. But yeah, the Pale Lurker was left behind, abandoned by her king, and driven by an obsession, and stays in the far reaches, even hidden at the back of the Colosseum. With her obsession. I love random stuff that I forget. Okay, so, even with the Abyss being sealed off, somehow, some of the children of the Pale King and the White Lady were able to escape the Abyss. Why do we know this? Is because there's a lot of corpses of vassals around Hollow Nest. They're literally found in Greenpath, the Ancient Basin, and a lot of them inside of the Nosk's lair in Deep Nest. And obviously, the character that we play, the Knight, is also one of the children from the Abyss. And the only entrance to Hollow Nest that isn't completely cut off from everything else is the well in Dirtmouth. So many bugs had heard legends of treasures and adventure and many things inside of Hollow Nest. So lots of bugs from outside of Hollow Nest would come in and go down into the well in Dirtmouth to discover these things, and most of them never came back. So the boys escaped the Abyss. Yes, they did. Some of them escaped the Abyss. A lot of them did not. A lot of them perished inside of the Abyss, but some of them were able to escape. And most of them ended up with a horrible fate, except for the player character's Knight. So, with Hollow Nest being at a standstill, like, the king's gone, the White Lady is hiding away, the 5 Great Knights are all hidden away. Well, they're either dead or hidden away. A lot of the people, a lot of the bugs inside of Hollow Nest are either consumed by the infection or hiding away. Or, you could be the Hollow Knight here who's having an inner battle with themselves. So, having fun times. The Radiants decided now was the time for an even bigger action. And she wielded all of her power and was able to make a crack on the shell of the Hollow Knight. And is able to let out a roar that reaches the deepest part of Hollow Nest. How soon would that be a prequel to the game? Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting, wouldn't it? Because you have all the stuff that is before the game. But yes, her roar is heard everywhere. And this roar... Hi, Leo. Well, we're getting to the best parts. So no more little time infection, she goes full on. Yeah, she goes full on infection. So the infection leaking increases tremendously. The Crows comic is, the closest we got. The dead bugs that are all over Hollow Nest, by the way, rise to life and start running around. And the zombie bugs rise again. I'm gonna leave a like thanks for the stream. I see the VOD. Well, thanks for stopping by, Leo, nevertheless. I am very thankful. You'll probably really enjoy the VOD, hopefully. But yes, the Weavers, with this roar, run away. They leave their den, they leave Hollow Nest, they go who knows where. They disappear. Quarrel, during the years of stasis, went outside of Hollow Nest. For what reason, we do not know, but feels compelled to come back to Hollow Nest. And he comes back to Hollow Nest, and he has very foggy memories of why he came back. He knows that he was from Hollow Nest. He doesn't know why. He doesn't remember that he's connected to Monomon. He doesn't know that his mask is a key. He knows nothing. You missed quite a bit. But good for you, you get a raise. And the player character, our knight over here, is seen the first time in Dirtmouth around this time. They were out in the wilderness surviving, and they were called back to Hollow Nest, whether that was because of the roar or some type of connection with the Hollow Knight. the knight returns to help end the cycle. So, any questions? Because then we're going to be getting into the actual game events. All of the stuff that I've had for 73 slides, technically 74 if you count this one, was all pre-game content that you learn in the game. All of that was before even the knight steps foot back into Hollow Nest. It was like, holy moly. Where was the knight before coming back? Was out in the wastelands. We have no idea where specifically the knight went. We just know the knight left Hollow Nest. Like, escaped the abyss and left Hollow Nest. Where's Grim? Grim's gonna appear in the game, in the game content section. Why don't he remember? Reading so much of the lore? Yes, I did. Why didn't Quill remember? For whatever reason, and I will tell you this. This is something that I specifically read, and we still assume they're hollow. We don't really know. That's what, like I said, the term Hollow Knight isn't real, and Pure Vessel don't really fit these children. That's the thing. The whole Pale King's plan was flawed from the beginning. Did he hit his head too hard? No, from what I understand, if he has no will, why leave and why come back? Like I said, why come back is, I think, like I said, it was either they sensed the changing of the Hollow Knight's condition, or that the Hollow Knight called out for help in some way, since they're both made from the void. Yes, HY, that is exactly it. For some reason, so remember how the Pale King made the bugs have higher intelligence and thought? So Hollow Knight has this, like, circle around it in a way. Think of it as a big, giant circle. And in the circle, you have more complicated thought, feelings, understandings. But as soon as you leave that circle, it becomes foggy. You become more in tune with your natural instincts. You don't think as complicated as you used to when you were in Hollow Nest. Yes, outside of the influence of the king, the bugs become back to their natural state. So because Crow left the circle, as we say, of the Hollow Nest, he doesn't remember specific details. Me state? What do you mean me state? Yes, you state. So yeah, pretty much they, like I said, as HY said, their memories go away. Natural state, yes. The deepest bugs were left out of the circle since they seem more primal and aggressive than other infected bugs. I don't think that's the case. I think they just are naturally aggressive, just like how the mantises are naturally imbued with pride and combat-related things. I think it's just a cultural difference more than a intellectual difference. Because not every human being with higher intelligence thinks the same way. So I think spiders and the deep nest culture is more imbued in aggression and aggravation than diplomacy. Maybe they just refused the king's light. That is also a possibility, but that's how I think, is that there is... Because there's some complicated thought being put in, because how would Hera think about wanting a child before becoming a seal? Because becoming a seal for this whole plan is a complicated thought. There's a line by Monoman in the start of the game. Thank you, King, for giving us speech or something. Yeah. So, I think they were affected by the King's Light of Essence of Knowledge. I just think that they didn't want to accept it. They have it, but they don't really use it as much, if that makes sense. Okay, guys, are you ready? Are you ready for the last little bit? We got a couple more things to do. We're at 75 out of 100 slides, guys. We're almost there. Woo! We're almost there. Holy moly. It's so warm for me, man. Ugh, why does everything have to be so warm? Oh, we're 3/4 of the way there. Yep. We're in the last half. It was quite short compared to the whole thing. Yes. Yes, it is. And you'll see what I mean once I get into the game content. But yeah, any more questions or are we good? If you have any more questions, say it now. I'm gonna go turn up my fan. Is this gonna be on the test? For this imaginary test of yours? Sure. Sure. If that makes you feel better. We good, we good. Okay. Now we're getting into the game content. Like the actual game that you actually buy. Woo! Okay. The main game. So, as I hide over here. So, the knight, as in our player character, starts their journey in Dirtmouth because Dirtmouth is the highest, like, is on the actual level of everything else and connect outside of Hollownest and descends into Hollownest from the well entrance. They encounter many different bugs who are under the infection and defeats them and to get past. And they gain a lot of power and experience with each fight that they do, and gets closer to their goal of getting rid of the infection. And the knight also makes some friends with bugs that have either not been infected by the infection, or he saves them from the infection. Like Zote. By the way, Zote is not technically a friend, but, you know, is kind of one of the few bugs that isn't actually infected. He's just a cranky old man. But it's kind of close to friendship. So, Hornet, your horns are too tall. There we go. Boop, boop. So, while the knight is opening up their map, gathering information, they end up in Green Path, and they encounter Hornet for the first time. Hornet has been following the knight since they first entered into Hollownest, and knows what this sibling of theirs is here for. And she tries to kill the knight because she sees them as too weak to get rid of the infection or even do anything. So she just wants to get rid of a nuisance. Well, the knight wins. And she runs away when she's defeated. So, if you guys noticed, by the way, with the 5 Great Knights, I only mentioned 4 of them and their fates. Now you're gonna learn the last one's fate. Because I specifically left Zemer's fate till now. Because it wasn't really known what she was doing until the game. Ta-da! So, the Grey Murmur is Zemer. So, as the knight is going through the map, ends up at the resting grounds. And ends up getting the dream nail. And they come across a giant cocoon inside of the resting grounds. And they meet the Grey Murmur. Mourner, excuse me, not murmur. And she asks the knight to do a quest for her. And that is to take this delicate flower to her lover's grave inside of the Queen's Garden. So, the knight takes the flower and makes the long, arduous journey to the Queen's Garden, getting rid of any enemies in the way, trying not to get hit to not ruin the flower. Because this flower is very delicate, any type of overwhelming movement causes the flower to break and die, and they successfully make it to the grave of Sasha, as they say. Yeah, the annoying flower journey. Yes. The knight eventually makes it inside of Queen's Garden and is able to put the flower at the grave. So all it takes is a gust of wind. Yes, I really do think it is that fragile, because any type of getting hit in the game causes the flower to wilt. I don't know if it might be a strong gust of wind, not like a light gust of wind. Could probably make the flower disappear. So, the lover's ghost appears out of the grave and bows to the knight. And once the knight returns to Zemer, she says thank you and fades away. So I think that her and her lover Sasha were able to finally be together. If you have Isma's Tear. Well, I think Isma's Tear is a little different thing. Like I said, I think it's because Isma's is magic related. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're getting to the last half of this PowerPoint. Reunited in death, how mortal like. Yeah, they were reunited in the end. Which, by the way, happened in the story, yes. So this flower, by the way, why it is so special is because, remember, Zemer is not a native of Hallownest. These flowers are from where she came from. So, she's literally taking a piece of her homeland and giving it to her lover. So it kind of connects them together. So yeah, and we're on the 76th. We're on the 78th slide, by the way. Magic in some game about gods and spells and bugs, preposterous. Yeah, who knew? So now... Sorry, man. Holy. Talking. So yeah, now we're going to talk about the Grimm Troop. Remember how you asked about it? Here he is. Alright, so the Grimm Troop is freaking complicated and weird. And I mean this very honestly in a game about bugs and godly entity bugs and a pale king that came from a giant worm. No, he appears later. Do you want me to put Grimm? I thought I put him in here. Nope, I guess I'll... Did I put him in here? No, I guess I could add Grimm in here just for you guys. Let me just grab him real quick. Let me grab him. Just for you guys, I will grab him real quick. I don't care about crazy vampire wannabe. Well, I guess some of chat does. There we go. There we go. Is that good enough? There you go. You got Grimm. So, the knight ends up wandering towards the west part of Hallownest and comes across a corpse of a bug. And this bug is part of the Grimm Troop. Better than you. Oh my gosh, don't even. We're not going with this right now. Oh boy. Well, I'll say this, at least they're both kind of on the same level because they both are your friend and your enemy at the exact same time. So, this corpse bug was there for a purpose. It came to Hollownest to set up a ritual. This ritual is to be able to summon the troop. It just needs someone to start the ritual. It needs someone to, as they say, light it a flame so that they can be summoned there. The troop worships a god called the Nightmare Heart. The Grim is more tolerable. It depends. So, this is the Nightmare Heart, by the way. Don't that look so friendly, guys? This is so friendly. Right? This is the most friendly god we've seen all game. So, this heart is kept alive because of nightmares. What am I looking at? The Nightmare Heart. That is what the troop worships, is the Nightmare Heart. The way with the fleeting spark, though, our dead, we shall honor him, feed the child of the beating heart, and sing the praises of the Nightmare King. Yep. So, it feeds off of nightmares from bugs, but specific nightmares, which is the nightmares of bugs of fallen kingdoms. So, Hollownest is kind of the perfect environment for food for the Nightmare Heart. Like, is it an actual heart? I have no idea. It's called the Nightmare Heart. It might cause problems, but who knows? So, the ritual for the Nightmare Heart is feeding a Grim child nightmare flames, which are the flames from the nightmares of the bugs from around Hollownest that become these reddish-like flames, and the child consumes it. And that child, once it absorbs enough of these nightmare flames, core from amphibia, this child will then slay their father, which is Grim, to become the new Nightmare King. So Grim was one of the Grim childs who absorbed nightmare flames and killed his father to become the Nightmare King. So now, us as the Knight has been given the Grim child to continue this ritual. And depending on the player's choice, the troop is either going to be sealed away or leaves for another fallen kingdom. Now what this means is, if you're told by one member of the troop that there is a way to get rid of the Nightmare troop, and that is by getting rid of the ritual pieces. So destroying the ritual destroys the Grim troop's connection to where Hollownest is, and it seals them away forever. They can't cause harm or issues with any other fallen kingdoms. And if that happens, the deserter of the troop is found inside Dirtmouth with no memory of why they came there and what they were doing beforehand. If you decide to continue the ritual, the Grim child becomes the new Nightmare King, and once you defeat them, they leave to go to find another kingdom full of collapse and ruin and start the process all over again. So, after all this hubbub of the Grim troop, the knight arrives in the City of Tears, and Hornet is standing at the fountain that commemorates the Hollow Knight and the Dreamers. And she compliments the knight on them getting resilience and getting stronger from traveling outside of Hollownest. And she explains how bugs who leave Hollownest don't really remember their time in Hollow Nest. It's like a foggy dream. And she tells the knight that if they want to make changes to the current climate of Hollow Nest, they need to go to Kingdom's Edge. So, Hornet sees the knight as a possible replacement for the Hollow Knight. They qualify as a perfect vessel in her mind because they were made in the same circumstances as the Hollow Knight, same environment, but wasn't raised in the palace, so maybe they would be possible to contain the radiance. And Hornet wants to wait around and see if the knight will actually break the cycle by defeating the radiance, or will they continue the stasis of Hollow Nest as it currently is. Yeah, I thought that was a funny picture. So, the knight travels further into Hollow Nest and finds the Dreamers. I have mixed feelings about Radiance, and I love the boss, but I don't like her. You don't have to like her. Most of the moths didn't like her anyways, since they, abandoned her at the single look of this is new shiny object. Alright. So, they travel in and find the Dreamers. They discover about the Kingdom's past, how they were trying to fight the infection, what the king was trying to do, to the present day of conditions of the kingdom. And one by one, they find the Dreamers and destroy the Dreamers' bodies, which destroys the seals, which frees the Dreamers' souls from someone with a cold and just slowly gaining hope for the better future. Yeah, but our moths, of course, they blindly follow light. Yes, but it is still very funny. Once the knight destroys the body of the last Dreamer, the entrance to the Black Egg opens up. Alright. Any questions about the game section? Accelerates the speed of the infection. Yes, it does. Why Radiance bad? Because Radiance decided to take away the independence of all bugs and cause them to hurt and harm each other. I think that's pretty bad, wouldn't you say? Is Bardoon into his tailgate? What the frick is that? Bad cause mad cause she got replaced. Yeah. Because the next part is going to be the endings. Which, by the way, we're on 85 slides. Once we, for the ending one is 85 out of the 100. No, they just sound like society as we know it. But yeah, any questions about the gaming section before we do the last hurdle of the PowerPoint? Because this is where we're getting into the endings. And there's a lot to go through with the endings. There's so many stuff. Like, this is where that took kind of the most amount of time besides the beginning part to get her needle. I think she probably got it from the king. It probably maybe was a gift. Since the Pale King seems to know needles, since her older sibling, the Hollow Knight, knows nail arts. So, same thing. I didn't get it when I played. Not a question, but now I know why things get worse faction-wise at the end. I didn't get it when I played. Yeah, point is that you're removing the seal, so that means the faction is spreading more. But there's no other way to get to the Hollow Knight unless you open up the seals. Why do we only get a toothpick? Because we found a random thing. You have to remember, we weren't exactly the favorite of the Pale King, remember? I have a theory that Hornet was trained by Vespa, hence her name. Maybe that is a possibility, but she was raised by a nanny in Deep Nest, so it's not an inbot. It's, anything's possible. Anything's possible. It's definitely a possibility. Ooh, boy. But yeah, any other questions before we get into the final hurdle? Speak now, forever hold your peace. It also said she ran away quickly, so who knows. This is, I hope they cover the remaining plot holes. Well, yeah, there's a big thing. At the end of these, once I get to the end of the endings, oh, there's a lot. Yeah, do you believe in the release of Silk Song? Yes, if they put it in the Nintendo Direct, it means it's going to release. There goes a line, born from Beast Hera, raised by the Lady White, trained by the Queen, Vespa. Oh, yeah, that would fit. I don't think that's an impossibility. Definitely not an impossibility. What's your favorite boss? My favorite boss is Unmun? The frickin' you know, the giant jellyfish monster bug, because I beat it first try. Yeah, Umu? Yes. If I had to pick, like, actual combat-wise... that's a good question. I don't know if it's my best... I don't know if it's my favorite, but the one that gave me the most emotion besides the Hollow Knight would be the mother. That mother with her babies. That one gave me a lot of emotional feelings, which tells you a lot about a fight. If it's making you emotional. Had fun versus Radiance, to be honest. If you had fun versus Radiance, to be honest. Yep. Alright, here we go. So the first ending. So, the Hollow Knight is inside the egg, still chained up. So, we have the egg has been opened. This is the first ending. Obviously, we'll get into the other semantics that you have to do for the other endings. So, I'm just going to, nope. Give me this, thank you. I'm going to shove myself over here for the sanity's sake for a second. So, the knight goes inside of the egg. And they see the Hollow Knight chained up, high up in the air. And they don't listen to Hornet and continue inside. They don't listen to Hornet to go to Kingdom's Edge. So, the Hollow Knight tries to destroy the Radiance inside of their body by stabbing themselves. That's why during the combat you see the Hollow Knight like randomly stab itself. It's because it's trying to regain control from the Radiance as you're fighting it. This part of the PowerPoint. I am not trying to do that. That's so much work. So, let me move. I have to move chat because there is so much text. Alright, chat, you're going up to... You're gonna go be with the knight for a second. I don't know how much. Alright. Anyway, so... Sometime during the fight between the knight and the Hollow Knight, which, by the way, I'm going to call the Hollow Knight Hollow for the rest of this, because I'm going to be saying Hollow Knight a lot. Yes, he is staring. They are staring at you. So behave. So, the Radiance takes over the Hollow Knight's body to attack in different varying ways. So when it blows up like a balloon when it's attacking, that's the Radiance. Then when Hollow is in control, they're stabbing their body to try to get rid of the Radiance. So after delivering the final blow against the Knight, against the Hollow, the Knight absorbs the Radiance, like is above, and the egg's counter mechanism comes into place, and the chains release to lock the knight into place. The egg seals up, and the weaver's seal of binding closes the egg, and we are continuing the cycle once again. And that's the Hollow Knight ending. When it comes to the second ending, the knight actually listens to what Hornet said and goes to Kingdom's Edge. They are getting very close to the worm's corpse, and Hornet asks to fight them one more time to actually to see if they are ready. When the knight finally wins, Hornet allows them to head off to the cast-off shell of the worm, which is the birthplace of the Pale King, their father. And once inside of the worm's corpse, you see the shell of the Hollow Knight. Excuse me, not the Hollow Knight, the Pale King. And the knight touches the eggshell, and they acquire the King's brand. They are now the rightful heir of Hollow Nest. This is medieval type crap. Yes, it is. Now I gotta move chat again. Chat always has to move one way or another. Alright, there you go, buddies. Let me get specifically just chat, not everything else. There we go. So, this branding gives the knight access to their birthplace, the Abyss, that they have left so many years ago. And Hornet tells them, honestly, that there are two different ways to deal with the Radiance. Can't you just minimize chat? I could, but then you can't really see chat. Do you want to be like this small? Like, I could make chat smaller. Here, here, boop. Gone. Is that what you guys want? To just disappear? You could guys disappear if you would like. That's your choices. I either move you around or you disappear. Please, I'm smaller. See, you guys are back. You're fine. Anyway, she can't see us. I can see you just fine. Oh, boy. Except for perfect. What the frick does... What in the world are my brain options? What in the world? Anyway... So, Hornet explains that there are two ways to deal with the Radiance. The first is what we've seen in the Hollow Knight ending, and the other is to defeat the Radiance face to face. Hornet thinks that the void inside of her sibling, the Knight, can be used to get rid of the infection for good and heal the kingdom. So, the knight goes to the Queen's Garden to meet the White Lady, their mother, for the first time in their life. And the White Lady expresses that she was waiting for one of her children to come and see her and accept this gift right here, which is the King's Soul Charm. I think it's an organ. So, the knight accepts the gift from their mother, which is one half of the charm. This King's Soul piece grants the knight more power and more soul that they have ever had before. And the White Lady feels the Hollow Knight weakening from her roots. She can tell that her one child is getting tired after fighting the infection and the Radiance for years and years and years. And then she gives the first half of the charm. So, once the knight is able to fully upgrade their Dream Needle from combat of different warriors of the past and getting the essence and dream energy from them, they go to Seer, and the Seer calls the Knight the wielder from the prophecy that the Moths have had for years and years and years. The Knight now can bypass the seal on the King's mold outside of the White Palace and enter into the Dream Palace. After they go through the frickin' most bullcrap of the game, and I will repeat, the most bullcrap of the game, they find the other half of the King's soul charm, and it becomes complete, and makes the Knight even more powerful. Yes, I'm always going to be salty. It will never not be salty. Yes, the sauce is one half of the menace. Alright. Stop that. There we go. Okay. Jack gets to go be next to the black egg. There you go, guys. Well, a different black egg. This one's the void egg. Aren't you guys happy? You get to be part of next to the void egg. So, this King's Soul Charm is the representation of the White Lady and the Pale King's union, so it's kind of like their wedding rings in a way. So, the Knight heads into the Abyss, their point of origin, and enters the hidden area in the void, which is the birthplace, and that is where all of their siblings and the Hollow Knight were born. So, inside of this birthplace, at the far reaches of the edge, on the far right, there's this void egg. And the Knight dream nails it because it's got some dream essence. And they see a memory from their past where they were casted into the abyss. They see the Pale King and they see the Hollow Knight, both at the top of the abyss, and they're hanging on by an edge. The Pale King leaves, and the Hollow Knight looks back at them and then follows after the Pale King before they close the door, and the Knight falls back down into the abyss. This memory from the King's Mold Charm and the egg then absorb together to become the Void Heart Charm. Blood and Void mix surprisingly well. It'll be fine here. Because our brother had bigger horns. I don't know if that was the case. I don't even know it. That's the thing. The Hollow Knight is not even, like, have a gender, technically. But you could call them brother, I guess. It really just depends. Anyway, because they're kind of like the prince of the kingdom. I don't really think it was the size of the horns that matters with picking the pure vessel. So now, the Knight understands how they were born, that they have a memory, that they have an understanding of where they are. Yes, they are non-binary representative. All of them. There's a bunch of them. It's not just the Knight, it's all of them. Was favored, and she has big horns. She wasn't favored. She was just in a different circumstances than the rest of her siblings. Oh my lord. I'm all the way up here. I wouldn't call her favored. She's more lucky than anything else. Alright. But yes, the Knight is able to feel completely whole again. Is able to understand who they are, what their birth was, who their parents were, what their connection to Hornet is, how they're connected to the Hollow Knight, and how that they are technically one of the royal children of Hollownest. Which slide is this? 92. So, they are able to come to terms with who they are. And the acceptance of this makes the Void Heart Charm appear. And the siblings in the Abyss do not attack the knight anymore. Their siblings do not attack them because now they recognize the knight as their sibling, their family. Minutes to review our notes after the test. There's no test. There is no test. But you can go ahead and review them as we go forward. And inside of the Abyss, there is, in another corner of the Abyss, there's this giant dead bug that I think is from the Ancient Cast. And it gives the knight the Shade Cloak. I don't know why it says clock. Don't ask me why. And calls the knight the Lord of Shades. Now, questions next time you could ask the chat at the end. Well, then chat has to think about it. I don't know. This is more just of me expositing a bunch of fun lore. But, you know. Maybe. So, they're called the Lord of Shades because now that the knight has accepted who they are, they have full control over the void. All of the void in the Abyss, they can control at will. So, they become the perfect union of the Pale King, the White Lady, and the void. How long is this essay? Let's say 200 just to be nice. Maybe 300 if you want to be really nice. Quick question for those who were being nuisances like me. So, Hornet is waiting outside of the entrance of the egg. How big is... I have no idea. I don't think it's that big. Who knows? But yeah, Hornet's waiting outside of the black egg for the knight. She says that she's going to help the knight when she has an opportunity comes up for him. So halfway through the fight with the Hollow Knight, she appears. And she subdues the Hollow Knight and ties them up with her needle and pierces the shell where the radiance already pierced, but breaks the shell even more. This crack of the shell, which, by the way, if you would like me to tell you, for the one ending of the sibling ones, pretty much is you do the whole same process as the Hollow Knight ending, except for that Hornet gets stuck inside there and it pretty much dies. This is the technical good ending. Oh, that's chat. I want chat over there, and I will move slightly over here for a second. Yeah, I love this image, by the way. This is pure justice. Anyway, so the cracking of the Hollow Knight's mask allows the knight to enter the older sibling's mind, and they are now able to fight the Radiance head on at the core and finally defeat them to free Hollownest and everyone. They are taken to the arena that the Radiance has made for themselves inside of the Hollow Knight's mind. And near the end of the horribly arduous fight with the Radiance, they're climbing closer and closer as the Radiance is pushing all of the last bit of its power. And the Shades, or, you know, the siblings from inside the Abyss, come to the dream world to help corner the Radiance. And the void itself, the whole void, grabs the Radiance with its tentacles and holds it in place. So now, the Hollow Knight and finally having its independence from the Radiance, grips onto the face of the Radiance to hold her in place. And the Knight delivers the final slashes to the Radiance. And finally, the Radiance is defeated enough that the Void completely consumes her. And the black egg that this whole fight has been happening inside turns into shadows, and the Void melts the egg into the ground. And the Void melts away. Hornet, during combat, was put unconscious. During the explosion that happened of consuming the Radiance. It won't be a problem in the future. Who knows? Hey, the Knight and the siblings are all together, so I don't think the Void will do anything. Hornet wakes up, and she sees the broken shell of the Knight. And the siblings go back to the Abyss in peace. And the infection is gone. No more infection, no more Radiance. So, embrace the Void ending. Are you guys ready for this? We're not even done. Did I see the Godseeker endings? Yes. Yes, I did. I will eventually get those by myself, but yes, I do have the Godseeker endings, by the way. So we still have 4 more slides to go through. Are you guys ready? So, what do you mean, hold on? Hold on for what? Let me mentally prepare myself? Why, do you not know the Godseeker's endings? But yes, I have the Godseeker's endings here. Obviously, there's a reason why I'm trying to get to the Godseeker's endings. Because this is why. Are you ready? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, everything in the process is the same as No More Dream ending, which is this ending. And wow, did I freaking... Okay, so pretty much what happens with the Void Seeker... Excuse me, not the Void Seeker. Golly. So what happens with the Godseeker is obviously the Knight goes to the pit, sees that sarcophagus, opens it, and does a fight against the memories of all the fights that they've had through so far. Once they go through the No More Dream ending, the Void starts reigning in Godhome, which is the area where the Godseeker, where you have all this combat happen. And the Godseeker's in shock of where this Void came from. Where is this stuff coming from? And the Void culminates itself together into giant clumps and shoots out toward, not towed, I love autocorrect, toward the atrium, which is the area where inside Godhome that the Godseeker is, and is consumed by the Void, is wrapped up by the Void, and we don't know what happens to her. She's probably dead. Now you have embraced the Void, and the other thing, her physical body is still... So her physical body is leaking out Void. In real life, in the junk pile, she's fallen over in her dead body, and it's leaking Void. In Game of Buzz makes sense that Toad would be the big bad. So, the Godseeker's body starts pulsating and sporadically moving around and releases more Void. And not long after, black tendrils release outside of the Godseeker's body. And this happens if you don't do the delicate flower quest, by the way. That is also a prerequisite for the Embrace the Void ending. Now for the last ending. Are you ready? This is the big one. This is the delicate flower ending. So, if you do Zemer's request and give the flower to her lover's grave, it happens exactly the same as Embrace the Void in the first half. So, void tentacles are bursting forth of the Godseeker's body. And this dead bug is gripping this flower. Very weird that it's the same flower. And some of the void splashes onto this flower. And there's a flash of light. And the Godseeker and the void are gone. It's like they never even existed in the junk pit. And all that is in their place is a flower with one of its petals turned black. And that's all that's left of them there. Alright, let me do one quick thing. Okay, are you guys ready for this? Because this is the last slide, and this is the big deal. Are you ready? So, Hornet wakes up after the fight with the Hollow Knight and is staring at the dying infection vines. She hears the sound of chains being dragged from far away, and she readies herself for a fight. We don't get to see the character that comes closer and closer to her, but they are likely the Hollow Knight freed from the Radiance. Because this is the nail, and this is the head, and this is the little piece of cloth that they have on their body. And that's the end. And then it rolls credit. It's probably towards Silksong. So yeah, that's all of the lore of Hollow Knight's story until Silksong comes out. Yay! The end! We did it! I got it done in 3 hours and 3 minutes. Before the test. There is no test. So yeah, how do you guys feel about the ending? For now, yes. So what do you guys think of the Delicate Flower ending? Which I guess this ending happens no matter what, even in the Embrace the Void. I could try to sum the lore in 200 words. Yeah, good luck with that. But yeah. The flower was cool and funny. It is interesting. But now you guys see why I want to eventually try to complete that. But yeah, like I said, this took a while to make, but it was very interesting to see the more deeper lore of what this game has and how much freaking information is about before the game even freaking begins. Like, look at this. Look at all this crap. Before the freaking game even begins. What in blazes? No wonder Silksong took forever to make. Look at me making this, and this is putting it down without trying to do individual fights. Like, golly. I didn't say it is good lore. I'm just saying there is a lot of stuff to sift through. There's a lot of... It's not crap saying in a bad way. It's just a lot of stuff to go through and wonder and question. But yes. So, any last remaining questions for the night? Because this is all the slides I have. And there's freaking too much freaking lore. Like, it's competing with, well, I don't know if any game could compete with Five Nights at Freddy's, but it definitely is trying. Yeah, what's tomorrow? Tomorrow's my break. It's my day off because I talked a lot today. So that's for me to take a break and figure out what next week's gonna be. Will you do one with Liza P when you're done playing? Yeah, probably eventually. That'll be on the list of things to do. What's your favorite part of the lore? Like, what did you find something cool? I thought the lore of Zemer and her lover was very interesting. That was something that was like, what? That's her? That's what's, did you forget? So, you know, that blew my mind. And then this, at the ending, with the Godseekers content, blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was like, what the frick? That's so cool. No wonder there was a door left open for Silk Song. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. It's like, wow. But yeah, thanks for dropping by. Have a good night. But yeah, I saw theory saying Moto hates Oro or something like this. Do you know anything about it? Odo? Mato hates Oro or something about it? That, I have to see if I even recognize the name right now. Moto? Oh, the siblings. If I had to guess, I think it's more of just competing. If I had to guess. I don't think they hate each other. I think it's more like sibling banter, if anything else. Because they seem to be, like, they were trained under the same teacher. And I think it's more of like a competing thing. That they want to be better than the other. More than anything else. Because, at least based on the Hall of Gods text, it says, together we stand at Pathon's peak. Loyal brother, gods of the nail. So they definitely have... I think they're just more siblings that argue with each other more than anything. Oh yeah, it does say, despite the bad blood of Oro and Moto's relationship, according to the Dream Nail dialogue, whilst in their Dream Nail huts, both decide to fight alongside each other whilst in the Pathon without conflict. Let me see. Let me look at the lore real quick. His favorite... Let's see. Oh, so why they have bad blood is, I guess, let's see. Moto is waiting on Oro to complete the promise that his brother made to him. So he's upset about their promise. So, yeah, Odo didn't complete a promise, and that's why Moto's angry. It's because Odo didn't complete the promise that they were supposed to do. Alright, let's see what this is. So Oro comments on each of his nail arts that the knight has learned while remembering his brothers and master. He even asks them to tell Moto to wait a bit longer before Oro gives him what he wants. Or nerdy. Both. Oh my gosh. So yeah. Additionally, the knight can bring a delicate flower to Oro in his hut in Kingdom's Edge. He refuses it, telling the knight he would throw it away if it's left to him. Yet if given the delicate flower, Oro puts it in a vase upon the knight's return to his hut. Oh, well, thank you. But, yeah, so pretty much, from my understanding, why they have bad blood is because Oro has not completed a promise to Mato. Cool game for you to check the wiki up and, like, just know a bit about its story. Sure, what? Oh, boy. But yeah, I don't think there's any, unless there's any other questions, I don't think I missed any. No, I think the deer is giving me ramen, I think. Or miso soup. So is giving an offering, if you want to say it that way. I don't think there's anything else that has been mentioned. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. You're not paranoid enough. If I was, I wouldn't have a chat as I do. I'm gonna be very honest. Just like if you have some free time, check out the lore of a game called oh my gosh, Arknights. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Also, their positions in the map, they are the most distant from each other, I guess that makes sense. Well, yeah, it's also interesting that Oro is the only nail master that requires you to pay him to learn his arts. So it could also just be a type of, like, how he thinks about his brother is that, oh, he doesn't like how his brother goes about teaching his skill through a commodity. If I had to guess. So yeah, there's some type of promise that Oro has not fulfilled to Mato. So, and apparently he needs him to wait a little longer for that promise. Which, who knows how long he's been waiting so far. She wouldn't check it. What the frick does that mean? I'm worried about what that means. Anyway. Kidding, it's a decent story. Well, that's good. Anyway, any last remaining questions before I end for the night? Cause streams are getting longer and longer. I don't mind this trend. That really just depends more than anything else. Yes, where do you live? I live in, space. Are you gonna play Silksong when it comes out? Eventually, but it's gonna be on the Switch too, which I don't have. So, it really just depends. Wait, enough for Silksong 2. Silksong 2? You want Silksong 2? Let's see. Well, when it eventually goes on PC, then maybe. Then I would. It's just, I definitely think it's probably going to go on to, well, I guess we'll see what happens once it eventually releases. Well, the next game I will be playing, I have to freaking figure out where the heck am I in this whole thing, is probably gonna be Pokemon is gonna be next. Yeah, probably gonna be that. Or something else, it really depends. I'll figure out the schedule and everything. And no more questions. Alright, so that was my Hollow Knight stream. I'm glad you guys liked it. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. This is why it's only maybe a once a month, once a couple months type of thing. Alright, thank you guys for watching the stream, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!